Something happened inside Buckingham Palace that the royal family did not want you to know about. Not a birth, not a marriage, not a ceremonial occasion dressed in gold and broadcast to millions. This was something far more serious. A document carried through palace corridors long after midnight, sealed in crimson, so sensitive that even the most senior aides were ordered out of the hallway before a single signature was placed. And when Princess Anne stepped out of the private chamber beside King Charles III that night, her expression said everything the palace was working so hard to conceal. This was not routine. This was not ceremony. This was a monarchy bracing for something. King Charles III had just signed a royal order granting his sister, Princess Anne, one of the most powerful and rarely invoked titles in the entire history of the British Crown, Princess Royal Regent. And the moment that pen touched paper, nothing inside the House of Windsor would ever be quite the same again. The meeting did not appear on any official schedule. There was no public announcement, no carefully worded press release softening the significance of the occasion, and no familiar language of routine royal business designed to keep the outside world calm and incurious. According to sources familiar with palace operations, King Charles summoned Princess Anne for a private audience at a moment when the institution itself seemed to be holding its breath. Think about what that means for a second. This is Buckingham Palace, one of the most meticulously managed, schedule-obsessed institutions on the planet. Every royal engagement is logged, briefed, coordinated, and communicated through layers of staff whose entire professional existence is built around controlled messaging. An unscheduled meeting of this nature in the middle of the night, with aides forcibly removed from the corridor, does not happen by accident. That happens when someone inside the palace has decided that what is about to occur cannot risk being witnessed by the wrong eyes. Those familiar with the atmosphere inside the royal household that night describe a king who looked visibly tired but not uncertain. There is a difference, and it matters enormously. Exhaustion is physical. Uncertainty is structural. Charles may have been carrying the weight of illness and duty in his body, but the decision he was preparing to make had clearly been turning inside his mind for a very long time. One insider described the mood in the room as resolute, the kind of resolve that only appears when a person has stopped asking whether a difficult thing must be done and has simply accepted that the time has come to do it. For decades, Sir Timothy Lawrence has existed in the soft margins of Britain's royal world. Present, steadfast, and yet almost invisible. His name rarely appears in headlines, his voice seldom heard beyond palace walls. He is not a prince, nor a man of spectacle. However, those who have closely watched the royal family know that silence in the House of Windsor is not a sign of weakness. It is often a strategy, and Sir Timothy has mastered it. Born in 1955, Lawrence built his life not on glamour but on discipline. A career naval officer, the sea shaped his path. Calm on the surface, deeply controlled beneath. He graduated from the University of Durham, trained with precision, and climbed through the Royal Navy's ranks with quiet distinction. His colleagues described him as methodical, unfailingly polite, and discreet, qualities that in the world of monarchy are rarer than titles themselves. In the 1980s, his course crossed with destiny. Appointed as an equerry to Queen Elizabeth II, Lawrence became part of the inner machinery of the royal household. He organized schedules, accompanied the Queen on engagements, and learned to navigate the delicate balance between service and secrecy. But it was within this duty that something unexpected happened. He met Princess Anne, the Queen's only daughter. At the time, Anne was weathering personal storms. Her marriage to Captain Mark Phillips had begun to unravel, and the press swarmed like hawks around every shadow of scandal. Yet within that turbulence, a quiet companionship formed. Timothy Lawrence was different from those around her. Disciplined but kind, reserved but steady. Over time, what began as professional trust deepened into something more personal, more human. By 1992, their bond had become undeniable. That December, in a modest ceremony in Crathy Kirk near Balmoral, Princess Anne married Timothy Lawrence. A royal wedding stripped of pageantry, defined instead by sincerity. But unlike many who enter the royal circle, he received no title, no princely honors, and no official role. He became simply her husband, a man without crown or courtly rank, standing 2 steps behind, yet always beside her. And that is where he remained. Through decades of state occasions, foreign tours, funerals, and family crises, Sir Timothy was there, not as the center of attention, but as the steady presence behind it. His loyalty was quiet but unwavering, his composure unbroken. To the public, he was the man in the background. To the family, he was something far rarer, dependable. So when King Charles III recently conferred upon him the title of Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, those who understand the hidden language of monarchy took notice. This was not a routine gesture. It was a message. For in the royal world where every medal carries meaning and every ribbon whispers intent, such timing cannot be accidental. After 30 years of faithful service to the crown, to Anne, and to the quiet dignity of duty, the man who never sought a title has finally been given one. Long before Queen Camilla stepped into the royal spotlight, another intriguing royal connection was taking shape, one that very few outside palace circles truly noticed. It wasn't between a prince and a fair maiden, but between the ever-practical princess and a dashing army officer, Andrew Parker Bowles. Back in the early 1970s, the two were more than just friends. They shared a deep connection, and whispers around the palace hinted at a romance that might have blossomed into something lasting. But this budding relationship took a sudden turn, not because of royal scandal or family disapproval in the usual dramatic fashion, but because of something far less talked about: religion. Andrew was a devout Catholic, and royal tradition at the time strongly discouraged such unions. A Protestant princess marrying a Catholic was simply off-limits in the eyes of the monarchy. And so, with quiet hearts and perhaps unspoken regrets, Anne and Andrew went their separate ways. Camilla Shand, a name that would later dominate headlines, was at the time simply a young woman with strong ties to the same social circle. After his romance with and ended, Andrew found his way back to Camilla, rekindling a connection they had shared before. In 1973 they got married and Camilla became Mrs. Parker Bowles. But the romantic web did not stop spinning there. While Princess Anne had once been close to Andrew, her brother the young Prince Charles had fallen head over heels for Camilla. Their connection was instant and intense. But royal duty has a way of meddling in matters of the heart. The expectations placed on Charles by the crown, combined with the public and political pressures of the time, forced the young prince to step back. And in that space of distance and duty, Camilla committed to a different life, one that saw her marrying Anne's former flame. Fast forward through years of royal marriages, public heartbreaks, and private tension. Princess Anne remained steadfast in her role, always dependable, always focused. She became known as the hardest-working royal, someone who quietly carried out her responsibilities with little fuss. Meanwhile, Charles married Lady Diana Spencer, but their story was far from a fairy tale. Following Diana's tragic death in 1997, and after many years of public and private speculation, Charles and Camilla eventually reunited, this time for good. They married in 2005, and over time, Camilla transitioned from controversial figure to queen consort. What once began as a set of quietly entangled relationships among four young people has now transformed into a polished narrative of royal duty and endurance. Princess Anne has always been the quiet force within the British royal family, a woman of duty, discipline, and deep loyalty. While others have been swept up in headlines and scandals, Anne has remained unshaken, focused on her royal responsibilities with little interest in drama. Her reputation as the monarchy's no-nonsense backbone isn't just a label. It's a legacy she has built over decades of unwavering service. So when her older brother Charles finally married Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005 after years of controversy, tabloid whispers, and public disapproval, and didn't cause a scene. True to her character, she remained calm, collected, and composed. But that didn't mean she was thrilled about the union. It wasn't just that Camilla had been the subject of public scandal or that her relationship with Charles had caused heartache within the family. For Anne, the situation was even more personal. Camilla had once been married to Andrew Parker Bowles, who also happened to be one of Anne's past romantic interests. That tangled history was impossible to ignore. There were no angry interviews or dramatic public scenes. Princess Anne didn't speak ill of Camilla, nor did she attempt to sabotage the relationship. But those close to the royal family observed a quiet chill in the air whenever the two women were in the same room. They didn't clash openly, but they certainly didn't blend naturally either. And, known for her strict sense of royal duty and traditional views, found herself face-to-face with Camilla's more relaxed modern take on life inside the palace. Camilla seemed comfortable breaking away from the rigid expectations that Anne had always followed without question. That difference in mindset was subtle but powerful. One moment in particular seemed to reveal just how deep Anne's feelings ran. After Camilla officially became queen consort, royal protocol would suggest that even Anne, the king's sister, offer a curtsy. but and didn't. Whether it was a quiet protest or simply a reflection of their complex history, that decision spoke volumes. It was a small gesture, but one that echoed through royal watchers and insiders alike. And yet, even amid these unspoken tensions, Anne never lost sight of her greater purpose. She may not have embraced Camilla with open arms, but she did publicly recognize her role as a support to King Charles. In appearances together, Anne and Camilla have always maintained a respectful front. They smile when expected, exchange polite words, and perform their duties side by side. Behind the palace doors, however, the atmosphere is more complicated. It's not a soap opera. It's more like a high-stakes chess game where every move is shaped by centuries of tradition, layers of personal history, and the unbreakable expectation of royal composure. Princess Anne has always stood out in the royal family. Known for her no-nonsense attitude and tireless work ethic, the Princess Royal is King Charles's most trusted ally. Their bond, built over decades, remains one of the strongest in the royal circle. Anne and Charles grew up just 2 years apart and were inseparable as children. They often relied on each other while their parents, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, traveled for royal duties. Those early years created a connection that only deepened with time. While others may have seen the crown as a burden, Anne and Charles treated it as a shared responsibility, something that tied them together more than anything else. Unlike others in the family, Anne never hesitates to speak her mind. She has earned respect for her courage to say what she truly thinks, even when talking to the king. Charles truly values that honesty. During his coronation, he showed his faith in her by giving her the rare and historic title of Gold Stick in Waiting, a position once meant to protect the monarch during important events. It was more than a ceremonial role. To him, it was a public sign of his confidence in her. Behind closed doors, and is said to be the one Charles turns to when things get heavy. She gives him straightforward advice, even when her opinions go against his plans. Yet their relationship isn't all about duty and serious discussions. The siblings share a sharp sense of humor that keeps their bond light-hearted. They're often seen laughing together at royal events, teasing each other in public with the kind of warmth only siblings share. During a charity event at Buckingham Palace, Anne jokingly thanked Charles for letting her use the space, saying with a smile, "It does help." Another time, Charles shared that while visiting a care home in Scotland, someone asked if he was the Princess Royal. When Anne retold the story, she laughed and added, "And I am wearing trousers today." These playful exchanges show the ease between them. Rare in royal life, their friendship has endured through every chapter of their lives, from the excitement of Anne's Olympic days to the sorrow of their mother's passing in 2022. During that difficult time, they stood side by side at public events, comforting each other through understanding. Anne's personality makes her one of the most admired royals. She raised her children, Zara and Peter, without royal titles so they could live freely. Her bravery also stands out in history. During a kidnapping attempt in 1974, she famously told her attacker, "Not bloody likely." That courage mixed with humility defines who she is. Even the king isn't spared her humor, and reportedly calls her brother Old Bean, a funny, affectionate nickname. But behind the nickname is a man who has endured a lot and made countless sacrifices which only members of the royal family are aware of. It appeared first in a line of print so brief that most readers might have missed it entirely, a routine entry in the royal court circular nestled among the day's official appointments and acknowledgments. But for those who follow the coded language of monarchy, that quiet announcement carried unusual weight. King Charles III had elevated Sir Timothy Lawrence, Princess Anne's steadfast husband, from Knight Commander to Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, the highest possible rank within that centuries-old honor. At face value, it was a formal recognition, the kind that typically passes without fanfare. Yet beneath its polished restraint, the gesture shimmered with deeper meaning. The Royal Victorian Order, established by Queen Victoria in 1896, is unlike any other accolade in the British system. It is not awarded through ministers or committees, nor influenced by political favor or public campaign. It is in essence the monarch's personal acknowledgement, a direct expression of gratitude from the sovereign himself. And so when the king chose to bestow his greatest rank upon his sister's husband, the message was clear. This was not about formality. It was about trust, loyalty, and quiet service. The title of Knight Grand Cross is rarely given. Those who hold it form a small circle, Queen Camilla, Catherine Princess of Wales, and the Duchess of Edinburgh among them. For Sir Timothy to now stand symbolically beside such figures speaks volumes. It does not make him royal by blood or by duty, nor does it grant new constitutional influence. He remains officially a private citizen. But in royal life, symbolism often outweighs status. Every choice, every title, every ribbon pinned upon a chest tells its own story. And this one feels almost like a whisper of reassurance amid a time of uncertainty. Because the truth is the royal landscape today is shifting beneath its own weight. Illness, loss, and scandal have thinned the front line of working royals. The monarchy has grown smaller, leaner, more fragile. King Charles is navigating both personal health challenges and the pressures of modern expectations. The Princess of Wales continues her recovery away from public life. Even Anne, known as the monarchy's hardest worker, cannot carry the full weight alone. In such times, those who stand quietly in support, those who embody the unseen stability of the crown, become essential. That perhaps is where Sir Timothy's new honor finds its real resonance. It is less about hierarchy and more about recognition. The sovereign acknowledging a man who has never sought attention yet has remained constant through decades of royal transition. The timing feels intentional, even strategic. Amid a family redefining its image, King Charles may be signaling something more profound, that loyalty, service, and silence still matter, and that sometimes the most powerful gestures are the ones made without words, hidden in the fine print of a court circular, waiting to be understood by those who know how to read between the lines. In the quiet and dimly lit corridors of the royal palace, an important and emotionally charged meeting was taking place, one that pulled back the curtain on the deep and often hidden tensions within the monarchy. At the center of this intense discussion stood Princess Anne, a woman admired for her lifelong dedication to royal duties and her no-nonsense, straight-talking attitude. Anne spoke up with firmness and clarity, raising questions about Queen Camilla's position within the royal household. She wasn't attacking Camilla personally, but rather expressed a powerful belief that a queen consort must do more than wear a crown. She must work tirelessly, serve the people selflessly, and earn their respect through consistent effort. In Anne's eyes, royalty meant responsibility, not just recognition. Her words, although calm and measured, carried the weight of years of silent observation and commitment. And wasn't trying to stir trouble. She was defending a legacy. To her, being royal wasn't about popularity or image. It was about purpose, discipline, and public service. Queen Camilla, on the other hand, listened with composure. For years, she had been rebuilding her image after stepping into the royal spotlight during one of the most difficult chapters in British royal history, the time following the tragic death of Princess Diana. Back then, Camilla was widely seen as an outsider, even a controversial figure. Since then, she has made genuine efforts to contribute through charity work and public appearances, steadily trying to change the public's perception of her. Yet despite all her efforts, full acceptance remained just out of reach. The shadow of the past still loomed large. In comparison to Anne, whose record of tireless service and quiet resilience had earned her great respect, Camilla still seemed in some people's eyes like she was trying to prove herself. This tense moment between two royal women wasn't just about their individual roles. It reflected something much larger, a tug-of-war between tradition and change. Princess Anne stood for the old ways, the idea that royalty is about duty, structure, and preserving age-old values. She believed in a monarchy built on sacrifice and unshakable principles. Camilla, by contrast, represented the complex path of transformation. Her journey into the heart of the royal family was not straightforward. It was filled with public judgment, emotional trials, and years of effort to move from scandal to acceptance. She was the face of a monarchy trying to modernize, more relatable perhaps, but also more vulnerable. This meeting wasn't just another royal conversation. It was a symbol of the monarchy's internal battle to find its place in the modern world. Can centuries-old traditions live side by side with today's demands for transparency, relatability, and emotional intelligence? Can someone like Camilla, who didn't begin her royal journey with public favor, ever truly be embraced as a queen consort in the same way as those born into their roles? Princess Anne, ever faithful to her role, left the room with her usual quiet dignity. Camilla, poised but perhaps pensive, remained, carrying with her the unspoken weight of expectations and the pressure to continue proving herself. In that quiet palace room, a new chapter of royal reckoning was quietly being written. It was no longer just about who wore which title. It was about how the royal family would define itself for future generations. Would it cling to its proud traditions or allow room for new faces and new stories, even if they came with complicated pasts? The answer, it seems, lies somewhere in the space between Anne's unwavering loyalty to duty and Camilla's complicated quest for acceptance. King Charles is a big brother to 3 siblings who have shared his journey from palace life to public service. Charles came first, followed by his only sister, Princess Anne, and then his younger brothers, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. Charles was born on November 14, 1948, making him the first in line to the throne. Just 2 years later, Anne arrived on August 15, 1950, and the pair became close companions during their childhood years at Buckingham Palace. A decade later, Prince Andrew joined the family in 1960, and the youngest, Prince Edward, followed in 1964. With nearly 15 years between the eldest and youngest, Charles naturally took on a guiding role as the older brother. Growing up in the royal household wasn't ordinary by any means. The siblings often appeared beside their mother during her record-breaking reign, supporting her through years of ceremonies, charity work, and global tours. As they grew older, each one found their own place within the royal system. But their loyalty to the monarchy never wavered. Since King Charles ascended the throne and began his battle with cancer, Princess Anne and Prince Edward have been constant figures of support. They've quietly stood beside their brother, just as they did during their mother's reign. Their unity shows that beyond titles and tradition, the royal family's strength lies in its personal connections. King Charles, in return, has always shown care for his siblings. When Princess Anne suffered a concussion and minor injuries during an incident at her country home in June 2024, he made sure to send his love and